You're listening to the podcast Coffee with Mike and Julie, Libertarians Talk Psychology. This is current commentary from an MBA businessman and a PhD psychologist.
Look what they done to my song, Ma.
So I want to talk about and just brainstorm the unconscious. And psychologists have been studying the unconscious. Now, there are two elements of the unconscious. One is the individual unconscious, and the other is the collective unconscious. So those do go together. They do, in my view, fluctuate together. Probably, Freud is the one we attribute to discovering the individual unconscious. So you could say it's just everything that the person is not aware of goes into the unconscious, and sometimes other people know this. There was something called the Johari window that we used in the 60s. I can't say I was in the 60s, I was still in high school, but we used in the 70s and 80s, personal growth and organizational life, that kind of acknowledged that the individual information can exist in the individual that the individual doesn't know about, that other people do know about, and then it can information can exist where no one knows about it, where the collective doesn't know about it and the individual doesn't. It's kind of the deep unconscious or the hidden unconscious. So I have a couple of thoughts about the issue. So psychologists' goal in organizations is to keep all that unconscious mess from messing up decisions and harming outcomes, quality decisions and judgments. And it is a big job because you have the personal unconscious. Oh, you also have hidden agendas. So for the individual, you have the known self, or what they call the open self, but you also have the hidden self. So that's what the person understands about themselves. They know it about themselves, but they hide it from others. So you have that area. Now that's not unconscious. That's just deception.
Okay.
Our privacy, our confidentiality, which is not deception. So you get these categories.
Okay. So just to restate it, the individual unconscious are those things the person doesn't know about themselves. And those things can crop up, and because you're hiding it from yourself, you can end up making decisions that are bad for your life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as a therapist, that is a major task, is to help the person understand themselves so they make good decisions in their life.
Yeah.
So then there are hidden agendas, which can almost do a similar thing. You can have a hidden agenda, and to the extent that you allow that to be unconscious, it can.
Well, you can forget something and make it go, and you can repress it or suppress it, and it'll go into the unconscious. But a hidden agenda is something the person knows about.
They know about.
By
themselves.
definition.
Yeah. But then I'd like for you to tell me what the group or the collective unconscious is.
Well, and I think that is what's most important in this day and age, is the collective unconscious. Because it seems to have, actually, to me, it seems to have the most energy of all the segments that we're looking at. So let's just put it in a 2x2 table. The individuals can be psychologically aware and insightful, or they can be unconscious. Well, a culture and a society can be psychologically aware, or it can be unconscious. And we seem to be very unconscious right now.
And what would be an example of that?
Well, I'm going to just say the thing that pops into my mind is the court system. The court system seems to have a lot of motivated reasoning, the justice system and the court system. So let's just call that the justice system. Let's just use the example of Bill Barr saying there was no election fraud. Okay, so before he could even address it, before it could be investigated, he said there's no evidence of fraud, which is it's a logical problem. It's a logical problem to say there is no evidence of something. At the very most, you can say we have not received evidence, but I think that was wrong too, by the way. But so for the justice system to get their logical process wrong, makes me wonder what else are you getting wrong? If you're getting the logic mixed up. And so I saw this in the DOJ's prosecuting of the psychologists. I saw them get the process mixed up. Now, your friend...
The public defender.
Now, maybe this has been it's been this way for a long time. But I think what we're talking about is what we see over the last 40 years.
And it sounds like you're saying anytime we see where a bureaucracy is invested in protecting itself over the good or the goals of the system.
It's the goals, the process goals of a system.
Yeah,
let me explain that because that brings up, okay, so a group, we know this from embedded group theory, that a group will primarily always go toward self-interest. A group, just like an individual will, unless it has certain protections against it, unless you put braces on.
Like a constitution or something.
Like a constitution, exactly. Or like a constitution. That's a good way of saying it. So a group becomes over-boundaried, meaning they become insular, and the term that's used a lot is groupthink, but it's really very complicated. You have to have collusion between people's unconscious minds to make a group go to groupthink, which groups do just go that direction, unless there's a leader with integrity and knowledge. And I'm beginning to believe that you also have to have a certain amount of knowledge, skills, and abilities in the followers, or they'll just follow. They'll just in a blindless, mindless way, they'll just follow.
It's low risk, low energy to just follow.
Yeah, there you have it. So you get this group that has a boundary, and I'm speaking to that theoretically, where the information and energy comes in and out of a living system. So the boundary of a living system is a protective device, but also a kind of a organ system for the group. Mm-hmm. And so as the group becomes more and more over-boundaried, it becomes more likely to go unconscious.
And an example of that might be, don't listen to that information, that's a lie.
Well, there are a lot of mechanisms for how this works. There's a lot of research. It's fascinating research. But yes, that's correct. That's one mechanism. There are a lot of mechanisms for how a group becomes unconscious. Well, in our mythology and in our history, the one group, Nazi Germany, went totally unconscious. Any group that's committing genocide is probably unconscious.
Yeah, because it is not right.
It is
to try to wipe out another group of people.
Murder is not okay for human beings. Murdering other people, So you can kind of judge as an observer who's unconscious and who isn't, and which groups are unconscious and which groups aren't. So.
And I'm sorry, I have to. Anytime we mention Nazi Germany, I have to include
the
Soviet Union and China, because they were even worse.
Well, I think that's a good thing, because we and Jordan Peterson says that academics don't mention the Marxists.
That's right.
They mention the fascists, but it's no difference between the communists and the fascists. It's all about group unconsciousness. It's like, what flavor is your group unconsciousness? Well, there's when the tender-mindeds lead it. That's communism. And then there's when the tough-mindeds lead it, and that's Nazi Germany. It doesn't matter who leads group unconsciousness. It's group unconsciousness.
And there's group unconsciousness when it comes to the United States and voting, where 51% decide what the other 49% have to do. I mean, that's group unconscious too.
Well, you mean talking about the tyranny of the majority?
Yes.
That's actually not unconscious by definition. It's not, but it's just power.
It's still
power plays.
It's still centralized power. Okay.
Well, you bring up the point that what keeps 51% of the population from robbing 49% by making a law that says, you're going to be my slave, whatever, is group awareness.
There you go. That's what your whole topic is about. If you can make the unconscious conscious,
then you can
there's
ward
some
off.
control. There's some control to the problem.
Yeah, well, and also when you demand that 66 and two-thirds of the people have to vote a certain way, then you have a protection against the tyranny of the majority. But so back to the unconscious. So we have lots of evidence right now that our community is unconscious.
Collective unconscious.
Well, that's what Jung called it, the collective unconscious. Okay. I mean, now, so we're in a wake-up period for some of us. I mean, I feel, so one group says the woke culture is, and that's about racism, right? I don't really look into the woke culture meaning, but I think that's the racism.
I think so.
Yeah. So, but Donald Trump woke up a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And here's how he woke everybody up. We're astounded by the attacks, the blowback he got because he's a change agent. He obviously went in and changed a bunch of stuff. Because we see that now because Biden's in and he's changing back everything. It's just kind of like going down a list, and whatever Trump did, he's changing it back. So it's mindless, by the way, what's going on.
I find this interesting and kind of connected. Biden has been referring to Trump as the other guy. Won't say he's a previous president. Again, it's the whole thing about don't listen to that guy. Nothing to see here. That never happened. The other guy, not the 49th president or whatever he is.
So in that metaphor, if whatever, I don't know where he's getting that from, but come on, man, the other guy. How do you know he can't remember his name?
It isn't that he doesn't remember his name.
Are you sure?
Well, the article that I read was saying that he doesn't want to give Trump any kind of traction.
Yeah.
That doesn't want to say his name,
yeah.
Doesn't want to say his title, doesn't want to say he was a previous president.
Well, that would be smart because I was reading this journalist, Greenwald, I think.
Yeah.
And he was
Glenn Greenwald.
He was writing a story about the so-called news story that the policeman was killed at January 6th, which is false. The policeman was killed with the consequence of being hit over the head with a fire extinguisher is completely false.
Right.
And they're trying to look for what happened to the gentleman, and it looks like he might have been had a toxic reaction or an allergic reaction to something. Also, did you know that there were 2 Capitol policemen that killed themselves after this, committed suicide?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't heard that either. By the way, there was only one person to die on January 6th, and that was the woman, the vet from California. Okay, so as far as I can tell from the reading, one person actually died, and that was on. And then there were one person was trampled in something, and then 3 people had heart attacks, and then the policeman died, and they're still not sure why, but he didn't die from a head injury. But anyway, my point that I can get back to is Greenwald is reporting this, and he's reporting all the fake news, and that's bad cognitive psychology. So he reports and reports and reports all the fake news that say the myth that the policeman died, and you're just repeating the myth, and so you're stamping that in to the automatic unconscious. Whether or not you're arguing with it or not is irrelevant.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
You know,
just
it's
repeating
just
the
repetition. You can't fight misinformation that way.
How do you fight it?
There's a specific way you fight misinformation, because the mind sucks in misinformation if it's presented in a certain way.
So how do you fight it?
Well, I'm not going to go into that today because I don't think we have time, but I want to go back into the collective. What we've got and I've been thinking a lot about this, but what we've got are religions going on right now. So I kind of call it the collective religion. The left's religion is racism, or it's anti-racism. Everything they say and do is about race. It's their religion. It's like their reason for living. It's the reason for their political party. I don't know what else they're selling. Now, it's a good thing to have equality and not discrimination. That's a good thing, but do they have anything else in their religion that they're selling to us?
Well, I think they're a little weak on that right now, and it's been so easy for them to just hate Trump for 5 years. That's
they're struggling with meaning right now.
So now that Trump's gone, they've got to make a transition and
so there's
come up with something
they're doing. Okay. Yeah. So the blue religion is struggling, but I mean that's important. That's an important cause. But liberty for all is an important cause, and liberty for black people is an important cause, or brown people, or whatever. But it's like I don't see anything else they offer. I guess the unconscious on the right is pretty dangerous, by the way, also. Because it's like, it's more like Trump is right. I'm not thinking about anything else. Trump can do no wrong.
Yeah.
So we've become the religion of Trump.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I'm kind of guilty of some of that, because here's what Trump offers. It's like, oh my God, the swamp is horrible. I'm looking at the data for the swamp. I'm looking at the evidence, and I'm freaked out by the swamp. And so who fought the swamp? Anybody in the last 30 years fought the swamp? Trump. So we're all in the religion of, well, at least somebody's fighting the swamp, and that's Trump. And can anybody else fight it? Do you even imagine that anybody else can fight it? I mean, the guy is a phenomenally unusual historical character. And if you ask me who else could replace Trump, I mean, this is why I kind of worry about him. But who else? Who the hell is like Trump? Nobody. Well, so we've got a Messiah, Savior thing going on and the right is kind of going unconscious now too.
Ron Paul was saying it, and people like me thought he was a nut. I thought Ron
Paul was a nut?
Yeah.
You thought Ron Paul was a nut?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
When he was running for president.
Oh, when he was running for president.
And he was talking about the Federal Reserve. No one else was talking about the Federal Reserve. He was talking about the wars, and nobody else was.
He was talking about the swamp.
He was talking about the swamp.
Well, that's really an important thought, because libertarians, I mean, we need to come back around to what the unconscious is about. Libertarians, now, I've been looking at this. We're an odd temperament type. We're in the minority as a temperament type. And I bet you if I tested libertarians, I bet you I'm totally confident that libertarians test out as the theoretical temperament type. Out of the 4 temperament types, they're going to test out the ones that see the long view. I mean, I'm absolutely sure the founders were libertarian temperament types, and that is a minority of the people. We don't have a good influence on the collective or the collective unconscious. Mm-hmm. And that's a process problem. Libertarians need to address the fact that they have no impact in bringing conscious awareness to the other 85%. I mean, I need to look at that, but it's 38 and 38%. Guardians are 38%. Artisans are 38%. So you get 80%, and then there's the NFs are, I think, 12%. So I'd say maybe
you're referring to personality types.
Personality, actually temperament, not personality.
Okay.
So, and we can talk about that another time. But so the issue is how do you wake up people to the libertarian philosophy, which is good for everyone. It's good for everyone. I'm very convinced that there's a right way to run a country, and it has to be a libertarian. It's not perfect, but it's as close as you're going to get to the right way.
I would say, consistent with this topic, because you've been talking about Freud and psychology and making the unconscious conscious, I say that libertarianism is trying to accomplish the same thing in the economics world, that they're trying to make the unconscious conscious, trying to help the other 85% see what's true.
Well, I mean, that's the overlap between economics, which is social exchange, psychology, and evolutionary instincts, human nature. I mean, it's all of the same bucket.
Yeah.
So today's point is to try to open up the idea of the collective unconscious and what we libertarians need to be doing to try to bring it into the conscious awareness. And I think the opportunity exists. Trump was close enough to a libertarian. I mean, he started out as a liberal, and then I think because of his opportunistic style, he balanced some of the management problems between the liberal worldview and the conservative worldview. He managed what I think the liberal or the progressive worldview don't see is that Trump was kind of like a middle ground person. I mean, a lot of their policies he agreed with.
Well, that thing about being anti-war. I mean,
isn't that a liberal?
Used to be a liberal thing.
Yeah, used to be liberal, anti-war, and they had to paint him as racist. He's not racist.
Yeah,
so he's actually merit-based liberty. And they never accepted that. He didn't care what skin color you are as long as you do the job well. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's so clear in his. It's like he's opportunistic, business entrepreneur, achievement oriented, very achievement oriented. But they had to paint him as racist because that was their selling point. Okay, so the point today is that libertarians need to take a beeline on unconsciousness, and we need to look at that and develop interventions for that. And the fact that I can be in a community of psychologists where I'm talking about freedom of speech and I'm getting objections to freedom of speech and support for censorship stuns me.
That is stunning.
I mean, that has happened to me recently, and it just it kind of depressed me because there's no hope for these folks. And these are psychologists who are, trained in academia. They're all kind of halfway academics anyway. I mean, they're marching to the tune of the left party.
The government universities.
Government and universities. And that they could not understand that all censorship All censorship. And I want to be absolute about censorship. What was that example we had the other day? Oh, yeah, your dogs got out. And we were both heartbroken and you were distraught. And it occurred to me like you could have a GPS on those dogs and you could go locate them. And I didn't say it because I didn't want to upset you. And then after we found your dogs, I started talking about it and realized, and then you gave me information that they have the chip in them from the vet. And then we decided that could have been activated. We could have called the vet to see if can that be activated. And
does it do more than just tell you who the dog is? Is there a way for it to actually help you locate the dog?
Can you locate it with a GPS for a fee or whatever? The point being that because I censored myself and my ideas, I saved your emotions, but I also may have kept us both from a solution to the problem, a creative solution. So that's just how important information is.
I see your point, but I am so grateful you didn't.
Yeah,
because I was upset about those dogs.
I knew you were upset, and I was like,
and I was upset because I had not been responsible enough in taking care of my dog.
I knew that. I knew that you were suffering like crazy. But so hindsight, if we'd have brought that up, you'd have felt bad. But what if we'd have been able to track the dogs? Would that have been worth it to you?
Well, I'll call the vet today and find out.
Well,
I'll be more agreeable to your argument if it ends up being true that they can turn on something and you can locate the dog.
Well, yeah, that's hindsight, though.
I know.
Okay, so yeah, if I knew that they could, but see, I didn't know they had a chip in them. You had that information,
yeah.
And I came up with the information about, boy, what we need is a GPS locator in those dogs, which I know they sell. You know, you can pick. I think our grandchildren have things with GPS locators. I'm thinking people are using it all over the place. But the final point is
the fitness trackers. The fitness trackers have a GPS locator. If I buy a fitness tracker for our grandson, his mother will be able to know where he is.
Well, she already has a tracker on him.
Okay.
You mean Escher?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's already done that. I'm pretty sure she's done that. Well, okay, that's off the point. But the final point is that people avoid information, and that's censorship. And yeah, you like, don't tell me that because it'll upset me. But, you know, it's the other way is like, toughen up. You get upset. And so, yeah, to protect ourselves from information is self-censorship.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point of psychotherapy often, is a person is either consciously avoiding information or unconsciously avoiding information. That's pretty much 80% of psychotherapy. It's all, there's something called serious mental disorder. Okay, you put that over here in one bucket. Everything else is pretty much the psychotherapy of avoiding information or failing to desensitize yourself, so it's information flow, individual problem solving, and group problem solving is devastated by the unconscious. So that's where we are in this country right now, and that's where libertarians are. Libertarians should, what's that called when you target something by painting a red mark on it? What's that called? It's called painting a target, isn't it? We should paint a target. We should paint the target of the collective unconscious, and libertarians are the ones to do it because we have the theoretical and mechanical, not mechanical. We have the tools, the ideas that we can use as tools to make the unconscious conscious.